The black man want ownership. He want to be able to own his own things and make up his own mind.
Demetrius Big Meech Flenory is the most dynamic and well-known American-born gangster since John Gotti.
You know what I'm saying? And we can't be stopped. I don't see nobody stopped. I don't see no one to come.
But Leroy Nicky Barnes of Harlem, New York, was the original black gangster superhero.
At some level, at some point, everybody was, realistically. They were part of Nicky's thing because Nicky, as the kids say today, Nicky had the bag. Nicky had the bag.
Cavario is one of a handful of people, or perhaps he's the only one, to be intimately connected to both Nicky Barnes and Big Meech.
I met Meech in 03 in Atlanta. I had been living in Atlanta since '96. I purchased a house out in Marietta, and Atlanta was a world unto itself. Had its own culture, you know, had its own style, and its own energy, and it was a lot of love. The people who were doing what they were doing, they were, you know, supporting one another.
And there was another black population and economic and political power center, like Harlem.
Yeah, and that was something that wasn't too common. I had just come from Virginia Beach, living in Virginia Beach. They had a high concentration of young black millionaires, though. Like that's how
Virginia Beach.
That's how I got there, because my man Teddy Riley.
You could blend in.
He told me come on down there. You know, you get way more for your money than you get in Jersey.
And you could blend in.
Right. Yeah, and you could blend in. Like I was riding around in, you know, drop top convertible BMs and shit like that, and there wasn't a second look. And I was, you know, I looked very young. Like I was young, but I looked even younger, you know. But you know, yeah, it was so, you know, Atlanta was a place that drew people to that collective energy, and that's what drew him, homie here, drew Meech to Atlanta. So, you know, we were introduced by my man Vaughn, Big Vision, and
at where?
At Club Chaos, you know, Club Chaos, and you know, that was October 2003, and from that moment, the moment we was introduced, he was very familiar with my work, you know, in terms of the magazine, in terms of, you know, doing Don Diva, and you know, we connected and we started building, and we just bonded, you know. One of the first conversations we had was one I've shared with you before. We asked me to put him on the cover of the magazine, and I told him I wouldn't do it for no amount of money, you know. And you know, when I think about the things I've learned since then, and I only recently thought about this because of things I've recently learned, you know, sitting down and looking at that whole situation through a spectrum of more actual facts, right? As you know, the paperwork that was shared with us by Sosa, you know, kind of revealed, and you come to find that he was doing a smoke and mirrors thing with running around with all the people and all that.
Well, not smoke and mirrors in terms of he was selling the drugs and making the money, but the people that were there in Atlanta with him.
The people that people were looking at all the time, based upon the amount of energy he put into drawing attention, that was not where the action was happening.
Was that a plan?
That was a plan. That was a plan. So when he asked me,
look at the clowns at the circus, the lions are over there.
All right. But I mean, you know, he wouldn't refer to anybody as a clown, though. Like,
look at, well, here's the attention.
Yeah,
look at us.
This is the three rings right here.
They're not really committing much
right
in the way of crimes.
Right.
The crimes are going on over here. Well,
you know, the operation, the nuts and bolts of this thing that makes this thing move is happening. The nuts and bolts of this thing, you know, this movement is happening outside of your viewpoint. You know, it looks like they're doing these things in front of your face, but they're not. You're filling in the blanks. You're seeing cars, you're seeing jewelry, you're seeing money, but you're not seeing where it's coming from. So whatever you're not seeing, you're filling in the blank. You're making up in your mind. After a while, you start to see so much of what you believe is evidence of what you perceive, that you begin to actually perceive that you're seeing it for real. So people really thought that they saw him being, you know, a drug dealer, and they didn't. They never did. All they saw him doing was living a lifestyle that if you didn't think of him as a rapper or entertainer or somebody in the, you know, in that sphere, then I guess you'd have to think, well, he must be, if he's not one of them, right, he must be a drug dealer. You know?
So you say rappers and entertainers. Tell us about that milieu of Atlanta at that time, and you know it was a mecca for successful younger black people. They could go there and be comfortable and spend their money, and most of them were legal. It really, let's be clear, the ratio of criminals to legal people is low. It's just the legal people aren't exciting. What was the milieu that was moving around the clubs and that life you guys were living?
I mean, everybody from major executives at corporations that were not entertainment related, just that did high volume business, and other people who could afford that lifestyle as well. Producers, rappers, managers, scammers, check kiters, you know what I mean? People like that. So it was a very mixed bag, you know what I'm saying? But everybody was really drawn to that movement, to the energy of that movement.